Good morning, everybody, and good moed. We're up to Perkei Aleph Mishna Vav. Today we're going to do two Mishnayos, Vav and Zayin. They're short and they are related. Megura means a storeroom. Shapina mimena chitei truma, that you cleared out from it grain of truma. You had wheat of truma and you stored it in the storeroom, and now you're cleaning out the truma grain. You're cleaning out the storeroom. Now, typically when that happens, there are still kernels from the grain that was in there before that are left on the floor. There's still going to be some kernels left there. And in this case, you're left with kernels of truma there. So, we don't obligate the person after he removes and sweeps, which is what's typically done. You take the wheat out of the storeroom and then you sweep it out. We do not obligate him to sit there and to pick up one by one. Because even after you sweep, typically there are going to be some kernels left on the ground. But these kernels in our case are truma. So one might think that you have to pick up each individual one so as not to allow the truma to get lost. Rather, you sweep it as you regularly would. And then afterwards, you can put the chulin in there. So what's happening is that you had a storeroom of truma, you took out the truma, you swept out whatever's left. But there's still some stuff there on the ground. There's still some kernels of truma left on the ground. So the Mishna says you do not have to do more than anything you would normally do by any case where you had grain in a storeroom and you took it out and you swept. You sweep it out as you would sweep it out if it was chulin. You don't have to go there afterwards and pick up all the leftover kernels of truma from the ground. And then you can go ahead and you can put chulin, meaning you want to now put other grain in there, which is going to be chulin, you can do so. Now, the question is, though, what about those grains of chulin? What about those kernels of truma, rather, that were still there? What's going to happen to them? Why don't we have a situation of a mixture? So the answer is, you're going to say, well, what do you mean? You're probably going to have a lot more grain going in there than kernels. You'll definitely have 100 times more, and it'll nullify them. So all the kernels of truma will be nullified. That's how we'll take care of the problem of how do you deal with the kernels of truma at the end of the day. But the question is, though, that we have a principle that ein mevatlan iser lachatchila. You cannot intentionally go and nullify something forbidden. You cannot decide, I have two forbidden things. I have a forbidden thing and a permissible thing. I will intentionally go mix them together. I'll have more times the permissible than the impermissible. I'll have enough to nullify it and everything, and I'll be able to eat everything. The answer is you can't do that. You're not allowed to initially go and nullify. So the question is that's what's happening here. We're saying that you don't have to go ahead and remove the leftover kernels on the floor of truma, which are truma. You're going to go ahead and you're going to put other chulin in there, right? You're going to go now put other grain, which is chulin, in there. They're going to get mixed together. You're telling me it's mavatl, it's nullifying it, but you knew you were doing that. You knew that there were grains of kernel on the ground, still on the floor there. You're intentionally putting in the chulin, and you know it's going to nullify it. Isn't that a problem of intentionally nullifying something forbidden? So there's two answers to this question. One answer is that when you're putting the new chulin grain into this storeroom, you're not doing it to nullify the grains on the floor. You're doing it because I want to store my grain in here. It's going to be that once I store it there, it's going to get mixed up and they can nullify it. That's not called intentionally nullifying something forbidden. If I'm putting this here anyway, because this is where I store my grain, and now it comes out that it's going to go and it's going to come out after I do that, I'm going to nullify what's the grains on the floor, which I know is going to happen. That doesn't fall into the principle of intentionally nullifying something forbidden. Since you're storing it there because you want to store it there, not for the purposes of nullifying it, it's not a problem. That's one answer that's given. The other explanation is that these grains are so insignificant that they're automatically nullified. They have no significance, they have no value, and therefore they automatically lose their truma sanctity. They have no importance. And therefore, automatically, like they're nullified, they have no standing on their own, and therefore there is no problem with those grains on the floor. Okay, let me just read it to you here from the Yad of Rum. Negligible or trace amounts of truma are insignificant and therefore considered null and void and bereft of their truma sanctity. There's something that's so insignificant, just basically, it's like it has no existence. All right, that's Mishnah Vav. Mishnah Zayin. V'chein, and so too. Chavish al shemen shenishbacha. You had a barrel of truma oil that spilled. Okay. We don't obligate him to sit there and have to wipe it up with his hand from the ground. But you act towards it as you would with oil that was chulin. Okay, you have a barrel of oil. The barrel of oil spills over. So typically, you're not going to just let the oil sit there and seep into the ground and let it get ruined. You're going to pick it up. You'll take rags. You'll do what it is to go ahead and soak up the oil that you should be able to save it. But at the end of the day, there's going to be some left on the ground. You can't soak it all up. There's going to be some oil left on the ground. Under normal circumstances, you just leave it there and let it get absorbed into the ground. But our case is that's truma. If you let it get absorbed into the ground, that means you're allowing it. That means you're allowing it to become lost. And we're not allowed to destroy truma. So the Mishnah here, and so you might think that after you with the rags and everything you've done to soak it up, maybe you got to take your hand and wipe up what you can. The answer is no, you don't have to do that. As long as you have saved the oil of truma as you would have saved any other oil, that little bit that's on the ground that gets absorbed into the ground doesn't matter. That's not called destroying truma. First of all, you're allowing it on its own to be destroyed, which typically you wouldn't be able to do. But if we're talking about after you've done whatever you normally can, and there's this very insignificant amount that's left on the ground, that you're allowed to just leave it there and it'll get absorbed into the ground. No one's going to use it. No one's going to trample it or maybe let it become tamei because it's going to absorb into the ground. The question is, if allowing it to absorb into the ground would be considered like destroying it, the answer is once you have already picked up the oil that you can as you would normally pick up oil that's spilled, the little bit that's left that absorbs into the ground isn't a problem. Mitzvahs asay lahafresh meiser sheni b'shana rishona usheniya urevias v'chamishas l'shmita archa shehifresh meiser rishen. A positive commandment that after you have separated the meiser, the tithing for the Levi, which we discussed yesterday, you start off with your new grain. The first thing you separate is truma for the Kohen. The next thing you separate is from what remains after the truma. Take a tenth of that, give it to the Levi. The Levi can take a tenth from his tenth and give it to the Kohen. Now there's a second tithing that you need to do from what's left over from your grain. And that is done in the 7-year cycle that leads to 6 years. In the 7th year, that's Shemitah. In the 6th year that precedes Shemitah, this Meiser Sheni, the second tithing that we call a second tithing, will be separated on the 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 5th years. In the 3rd and the 6th, there's going to be a different type of tithing. But this tithing is called Meiser Sheni. It's the second tithing. Shenemar aser ta'aser es kol tvuas zarecha. You shall surely tithe the grain of your grain, tvuas zarecha, the grain of your planting. You shall eat it before Hashem your God in the place that He chooses. V'dinai, and the law is regarding the second tithing. That its owners bring it up to Yerushalayim, to Jerusalem, and they eat it there. You also have the option of redeeming this fruit onto money out of Yerushalayim to bring up the money, meaning you evaluate these Meiser Sheni fruits and you take money that it's its value, or you take money and you redeem you basically switch, you transfer the Kedusha of the Meiser Sheni, the sanctity of the Meiser Sheni, which is what obligates you to eat in Jerusalem. You now switch that over to the money that you are redeeming the fruits with. Okay, it gets transferred onto that money, and that money now has to be taken to Yerushalayim and spent on food there. Ukshenitma. Now, in case the Meiser Sheni became impure, which means as Meiser Sheni you're not allowed to eat it, that you can redeem even in Yerushalayim. Produce that you bring from Meiser Sheni, that did not become a tamei, you may only redeem it outside of Yerushalayim. Once it gets into Yerushalayim, you can't redeem it. If it became impure, so you're not going to be able to eat it as Meiser Sheni, the fruits themselves, then you can redeem it even inside Yerushalayim. So the fruits remain impure, but they're not Meiser Sheni, and the sanctity is transferred onto the money. And nowadays, we don't have the Beis HaMikdash, and Meiser Sheni is not even eaten in Yerushalayim. Still, it has sanctity. You have to separate it. Then you redeem it onto a coin. Take that coin and throw it into the sea. Get rid of it. You got to destroy it. A person could now designate a coin for the purposes of taking off the sanctity, of redeeming, of taking off the sanctity of the Meiser Sheni. And each time to do it on a pruta's worth of that coin, until the coin is used up. Meaning, I started saying something before, it's a mistake. When you redeem Meiser Sheni, it doesn't have to be value for value. It just has to be redeemed onto a coin, as long as it's the value of pruta, which is the smallest coin that's in usage in wherever you are. So what they're saying here at the end is that you can take a quarter, right? Let's just say a pruta was 5 cents. So you can you could designate a coin, a quarter, and you'll say that now for the next 5 times that you have to take off the sanctity of Meiser Sheni from food, you'll just transfer it onto a pruta's worth 5 cents of that coin. Once you do it 5 times and use up all the value of the coin, then are ready to take that coin and destroy it. But the point is, it's not like the coin is used once and that's it. All you have to do to redeem is to use a pruta's worth of the coin to redeem the Meiser Sheni. Good night. Have a wonderful day.